Nevada County, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. I've lost entry.
NTSB releases the final report revealing a horrifying probable cause that led to the death of the pilot on board a Cessna 177 Cardinal in California. Let's find out what happened on taking off. Hi, I'm Dan Milliken. Today we're going to talk about the tragic story of a pilot, and you'll never believe what the NTSB is saying caused this crash and his death. And you'll want to stick around for some crucial takeaways. In researching this one, it really impacted me the more I dug into it. And reading the comments in social media posts from friends and family that knew this pilot, by all accounts, he was an incredible human being and left behind some very grieving people. In addition to aviation, apparently he was a drummer in his church worship band, and if I have the right person, similar tastes in music to me, like Seventh Day Slumber, Christian hard rock. Here's the story according to the NTSB based on the evidence in the docket and the final report, which has come out only 6 months after the tragedy. That's incredibly fast for a fatality investigation by the NTSB. The pilot was someone who loved aviation. He got his private pilot certificate when he was just 19, and then life took over and he didn't fly for many decades. But his first love for flying returned when he entered his 60s, and he trained to get current. In March of 2024, he found an airplane that he could call his own, a 1977 Cessna 177 Cardinal with retractable gear. Now, when I was getting ready to buy my first airplane, my only airplane, a Cessna 210, I flew a Cardinal to get ready for the 210. It's a 4-seater, high wing, but no wing strut like you see in some of the other Cessnas. Same thing with my 210. With retractable gear, a movable prop, it's considered a complex airplane. One of our channel sponsors, Marshall Protective Services, Nick Olson, he has 2 of them. They're great planes. Looking at the pilot's logbook, only the most recent last couple of years are scanned into the docket. He flew mainly out of Auburn Airport in Central California with a couple of trips to nearby airports, including the one at Grass Valley, Nevada County, which he had done a couple times. The logbook doesn't include the back pages where you would find endorsements, but the pilot had accumulated 64.1 hours in the Cardinal since buying it 16 months before. On April 21st, 2025, 10 days before the accident flight, the plane had come out of annual inspection. A JPI engine monitor, the 701, had been added, and the JPI fuel flow transducer was installed, and that's going to be important. I'll tell you why in a bit. And the right tank's fuel sending unit gasket was replaced. The pilot logbook reflects 2 flights coming out of the annual for over a couple hours. Nothing unusual noted there. But that was about to change. And what the NTSB found will make you sick to your stomach. On the morning, May 1st, 2025, the pilot got into his beloved Cardinal for a short 14-minute flight to Grass Valley, California, Nevada County Airport. The pilot made the appropriate calls.
Nevada County Airport, Cardinal Flight 2156. I'll be crossing midfield for a left downwind engine 07 Nevada County.
All right. The airport, Nevada County, it has a single runway, 725. So basically it's an east-west runway. The eastern edge of the runway is 3,158 feet in elevation, and the western slopes down to 3,071. That's about a 2% gradient down. And by the way, for the sim footage that we're showing, there wasn't a Cardinal 177 model, just a 210, which is larger but similar to the 177. Now, this airport is Juan Brown's home airport, and at the time of recording this, Blanco Lario hasn't published a report on this accident yet, but he has done others about Nevada County, like talking about CAL FIRE coming in runway 7 and taking off runway 25. It's even in the airport facilities directory that takeoffs on runway 7 are not recommended for rising terrain. As the Cardinal approached the airport, the pilot was coming from the south and elected to do a midfield crossover from south to north, enter the left downwind for runway 7, and basically westbound. For non-pilots, this is all very standard. And here's from the FAA Airplane Flying Handbook, and shows the midfield entry for the traffic pattern, which is what the Cardinal did. On the runway about to take off was another plane using the opposite runway 25. Now, choosing to take off with a little bit of a tailwind, which again, for this airport, that's standard and had nothing to do with this crash. This pilot taking off, his witness statement is in the docket. He took off before the Cardinal had crossed midfield and the Cardinal saw him.
Nevada County, Cardinal 52156, on half mile to the south across the midfield for a left entry, downwind 07. I see the departing aircraft lined up.
The Cardinal entered the left downwind and, according to ADSB, about 4,000 feet north of the runway. Now, the same FAA Airplane Flying Handbook teaches that standard pattern altitude is 1,000 feet above the ground and that the downwind leg distance should be between a half mile and a mile from the landing runway, and that would be about 2,600 feet to 5,200 feet. The Cardinal pilot was inside that margin at 4,000, so for those quick to judge the pilot was doing a 747 pattern, that's not accurate. He was within FAA standards. Most instructors will teach that you should never give the runway away when you're in the pattern. In other words, if you lose the engine while in the pattern, you want to be able to glide into the runway. In fact, when we train for a commercial pilot certificate, one of the maneuvers that we have to demonstrate is called a power off 180. It's where you're in the downwind, abeam your touchdown point, and you simulate an engine out, and you have to be able to land on your spot on the runway. But the Cardinal pilot was not a commercial pilot.
Nevada County, Cardinal 52156, turning left, downwind 07, Nevada County.
And another point to make for non-pilots, it's standard that you begin your descent from the pattern altitude when you're abeam your touchdown point. So you start descending as you finish the downwind leg and continue descending on base and then final. Now, if you have an engine out, because you've already started your descent, and if you extend a little further, you might not have enough altitude to make it back to the runway. And I'll talk more about this at the end of the video. And the last word about the pattern. From the downwind, you turn to the base leg when you're approximately 45 degrees off your touchdown point. It's not unusual to extend a downwind, especially if you aren't yet set up for landing, or if you just need a little bit more time, or there's other reasons too. The Cardinal pilot called base leg for runway 7.
Nevada County, Cardinal 52156, turning base 07, Nevada County.
25 seconds later, after calling turning base, the pilot made the Mayday call.
Nevada County, Mayday, 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 I've lost engine.
Looking at the map, this is what he faced. He had seconds to make a decision. Clearly, he didn't think he could make the runway, and there was nothing but thick trees between him and the runway. He was just about over the clearing for an upcoming development, but he was too high for that. And here's what he might have seen that morning from the cockpit. If he looked left to the runway, it had all those trees leading all the way up to it. No clear space to put down. Now, straight ahead looked like this. The trees were thinner, and there was a road, especially just over this rise. There was just no time. The pilot chose this direction. Now, I don't know why, and I can't judge his decision. I wasn't in the cockpit that morning, and no one that wasn't in the cockpit can judge why he made the choice that he did. He went near this small hill, and sadly, the pilot clipped some 60-foot trees with the stabilator, that's that small wing in the back of the plane, and he came down hard after that and sadly did not survive. The airport manager, Kevin Edwards, heard the Mayday call, and he was first to the crash scene.
I grabbed our handheld radio, got in the county vehicle, and immediately started looking. So called 911 on the way and found out that it was here and not where the normal site where we would think is where the new development is going in, just south of the runway. He was doing what he did. He loved what he was doing.
What happened to stop the engine and lead to this pilot's death? Well, the NTSB arrived on scene and investigated, and what they found will shock you. For all those who thought the pilot ran out of fuel, the NTSB final report says fuel was recovered from the wreckage. But on post-accident examination of the engine, it was revealed that the B-nut fitting on the inlet line into the fuel flow divider was over a half turn loose, and the area surrounding that fitting exhibited the blue dye staining consistent with fuel leakage. They did not observe impact damage here, which means it was before the crash. That annual 10 days before, per the regulations, quote, each person performing an annual or 100-hour inspection shall inspect engine lines, hoses, and clamps for leaks, improper condition, and looseness. The NTSB probable cause: an improperly tightened B-nut fitting at the fuel flow divider, which resulted in a fuel leak and loss of engine power due to fuel starvation, and the improper maintenance inspection, which failed to detect and correct the discrepancy. I talked to some mechanics, and this is the infamous maintenance-induced tragedy. Sure, you can say the pilot could have done a more thorough pre-flight, but at the end of the day, maintenance did not tighten a nut that led to fuel starvation. Now, I really feel for this maintainer. With the installation of the JPI engine monitor, he did have to loosen that nut. A simple thing to forget to tighten back. I could have easily done that. I can't imagine what it's like for a mechanic to live with that. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. A B-nut not properly tightened, and a man is gone. There's some extremely important takeaways here to make us better pilots and people. First, I've owned my Cessna for about 8 years now, and I'd say that the first 5 years, I would have had no clue if the B-nut was loose and the fuel was leaking. My mechanic now has drilled into me a clean engine. With a clean engine, you'll be able to see stains and leaks a whole lot better. He says a clean engine will tell you everything. I now will take my cowling off with a flashlight and a mirror and inspect my engine for just such things: colorization showing a leak, whether it's oil, exhaust, or fuel. And I keep a spray bottle of mineral spirits with a brush and a long dowel, and I've become a bit OCD with the cleanliness of my engine. My point here on the takeaway is this: cleanliness and organization leads to better efficiency, whether you work in the office or in a garage with grease under your fingernails. Sure, the stakes are higher with risky machines like airplanes, but when the stakes are high, I've got to dot my I's and cross my T's, which is something in my life I don't traditionally do. So it's a reminder to me to dot those I's and cross the T's. Also a reminder to not give away the runway when I'm in the pattern flying at an airport. Make sure I'm close enough to glide in an emergency. And another takeaway is a reminder that training is crucial. You don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your level of training. I need to go out and practice that power off 180 and other maneuvers that are scenario based. Now, the pilot's logbook showed that he went out and practiced. And there's clues in there that he was thinking about getting his IFR. Going after those ratings is a great way to improve your chances. Get that IFR certificate. Get your commercial. Or at least practice the scenario-based situations. What to do if you lose your engine on takeoff, but practice that at a safe altitude and with an instructor. And what to do if you lost an engine on downwind. You don't have to be working on the commercial to get with an instructor to show you the power off 180. That's a great skill to have in your toolkit. And if you're not a pilot, do you train in the skills you need for your livelihood? Maybe it's not life and death, but again, remember, in an emergency, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your level of training. That's it for today. Thanks to our sponsors like Marshall Protective Services, Personal Protection Elevated, NPSprotects.com. And check out one of our other reports right here. I really appreciate you guys watching. Thanks again. And remember, superior judgment trumps superior skill. Take care.